Hello, this is Brian O'Haron. Once again, I have a cold tonight, chewing on a cough drop here, but I'm going to try to make it through the 30 minutes anyway. I want to first start off by saying when I was a kid, I used to work for a painter, and the painter used to tell me, Brian, be careful not to paint yourself into a corner. Throughout life, especially in business, you're always trying not to paint yourself into a corner. And it looks pretty much like these Democrats, liberal Democrats in the majority of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education have painted themselves into a corner once again. Not good for us, not good for the children, not good for the town, not good for the taxpayers, not good for anybody. We are now, pardon me, I'll be coughing a bit tonight, but playing Winston Roulette. Winston Roulette is a takeoff on Russian roulette, except it's Winston that's got the gun to its head. And also, it doesn't just have one bullet in the chamber, it's got a bullet in every chamber. So it won't take much to kill Winston, or at least maim it severely. Lemming Perez created the budget, once again, that did not work. Now she's pushing a plan that adds to the costs without really solving the problem. Winston will have the same crisis, a school closing, in 6 more months. In April, if we keep going the way we're going, and we're lucky enough to be able to keep going the way we want to go, could be a repeat of October, and most likely will be. Lemmings, Clausen, and Renzullo are fans of the non-plan too. This team is experience. Winston cannot afford this team or its experience. We need people that will listen to experts and apply their advice. So I encourage you to focus on people that are running for office. Vote for the people that are not incumbents. And try not to vote for the incumbents that are running for either the Selectmen or the Board of Education. Next slide, please. The GAN, or nothing, for December. GAN means Grant Anticipation Note. The Selectmen agreed last week to try to do a GAN in the Bank of America, and that's all. Next slide. There is no known Plan B. They might have a secret Plan B. They might have several secret Plan Bs, but we don't know about it. Nobody seems to know about this Plan Bs. So, because we don't have a Plan B, we have painted ourselves into a corner. And that's not good. Next slide. We have to freeze expenses immediately. Schools and town. If it turns out that we don't get this GAN, many people think we should freeze the expenses immediately anyway for the schools in the town. Next slide. We should reduce expenses immediately. Schools and town. Be prepared for the worst. Won't hurt to have a real hard look at all the expenses for the schools in the town, freeze them and reduce them wherever practical until we're no longer painted into this corner that we're in right now. This is very serious stuff. Very serious. Next slide. Despite the advice of the state and the town financial advisor and the incumbent Republicans, next slide, The grant anticipation note may not come. They're still deliberating that. There have been some emails being sent around and a few meetings with the bank, I'm told, over the last few days. And the bank is questioning whether or not they want to do this grant anticipation note. And perhaps, next slide, they will only do it if, next slide, a bank approves. It happens to be Bank of America in this case. You never know what it's going to end up being, but approves of the $2.5 million loan that we're trying to get against the grant money that's coming in next year. And number two, the voters approve the same at the scheduled referendum, which is mid-November, if it happens. Now, the referendum could happen if the bank approves a $2.5 million loan. We'll have to vote on that. There are expenses attached to that of about somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000, maybe $35,000, $36,000. Some for the interest, some for processing fees and things like that. So those are the two things that have to happen. And by the time you see this program, they may or may not have happened. I always record these programs a bit in advance. Next slide. There is no plan B. If we don't get this grant anticipation note from the Bank of America, we're stuck. We have no plan B. Next slide. What a way to run a railroad. Can't run a railroad that way. Can't run a business that way. Can't run a town that way. Can't run a state that way, and can't run the government that way. So it's not good. Next slide. Brian O'Hearn, that's me. I always reemphasize this all the time. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes, but I'm unaffiliated. I've never been a member of the Republican Party, and I've never been a member of the Democratic Party at any level. I'm with the unaffiliated voters at all levels, and I try to understand the problems that the country, state, or town faces, and then I try to vote for people that I think will do the most to help solve those problems. And normally, they're a mixture of people, but fiscally conservative people of all parties and suasions and groups are necessary. And of course, you have to have other people that complement them as well. No doubt about that. But they could be from any party as well. They don't all have to be from a different party. Now, we are restricted here because we can only have 5 from one party. That would be the majority, and then the minority would be the 2 if 5 got in. If 5 didn't get in, it could be 3, 3, and 1. It could be 3, 2, and 2, different parties. So remember, as I talk to you on all these programs, I keep re-emphasizing to you that I try to be as objective as possible, and I try to treat all customers the same when I'm in business and do good for everybody that I can. Next slide. I'm going to go over tonight a breakdown of the eligible voters in the town of Winchester, because I think it's important that you know how many people are in each of these parties and how many are unaffiliated. I think it's very interesting. Next slide. The total number of voters this election, and it'll vary a little bit because people are signing up to even on the day of the voting, I guess. But right now, when I checked the other day, it was 6,916 eligible voters for this election on November 5th. Next slide. Unaffiliated are by far the greatest number and percentage. 3,572 unaffiliated voters. And I'm trying to, in my programs, address all voters, especially the unaffiliated voters. because they're the majority of the voters in our town. 52% of the voters are not in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the Independent Party. They're unaffiliated. And for one reason or another, they're in that group. A lot of them because they're like me and they want to look at all the alternatives and then go with whoever they think is best for the job. Just like you would if you were interviewing people for a job in your business or for a job around your home, to rake the leaves or to paint the house or do the plumbing or anything like that. Next slide. The Democrats are 26%. 1,816. 26%. So that's, a little more than half the number of unaffiliated voters. So not the majority by any means, the Democrats. The unaffiliated voters are in the majority. 26% of them are Democrat. And as you saw on the other slide, 52% are unaffiliated. Next slide, please. And that is the Republicans. The Republicans are 21%. They're very close to the 26% of the Democrats. But I think my own view is that the Democrats had a little push in the Obama election. More people signed up to vote for Obama. And they're still on the rolls, which is good. There's no problem with that. So 1,485, or 21%, are Republicans. Now, don't be too confused here. I'll talk a bit about this for you. But all the other parties put together, all the other groups, are less than 1%. I rounded it up to 1%. It's actually about 0.87%, something like that, 0.087. So I rounded it up to 1%. But that's where the Independent Party is. And the Independent Party has candidates running this year for a selectman. They're good people. And what I want to say, I don't think it's official or anything, but the Independent Party is kind of favored by a lot of the Taxpayer Association members, and there are plenty of those, hundreds of those. So, the numbers are a little deceiving here. The Independent Party, although there are only 50 members, have a lot more influence in the elections, as you know, from the past, especially in the budget voting, than you might expect from their numbers. Next slide. The current majority on the Board of Selectmen are 5 very liberal, financially misguided Democrats. I've told you on many programs here, my experience in town since I retired about 12 years ago or so, and I started studying the town for many reasons. All the parties, all the commissions, all the committees, just about everything I could. I found out that Democrats that are physically conservative and like to take a conservative approach to spending money and like to earn before they spend, they're kind of outcasts in the Democratic Party, fiscally conservative Democrats. And a lot of them left years ago to form the Independent Party. So if you go through what I know of the Democratic Town Committee, there aren't too many fiscally conservative people in there. And the ones that were in there in the past have always been shunned and not included in deliberations. And the other problem here, pardon me again, is that you have to vote with the party. You can't vote your own viewpoint unless it agrees with the party viewpoint when you're in the Democratic Party. So I don't vote for any Democrats under any circumstances, because even if they were fiscally conservative in with the Democratic Town Committee, they probably couldn't get a word in edgewise. And they wouldn't be allowed to vote it. And you can always predict how most of them are going to vote. Sometimes they'll abstain if there's something personal involved. And once in a while, somebody like Lisa Smith, when she was there, or even Mike Ronzullo, do stand up and say and vote against the rest of their party. But then I hear all kinds of rumors. I mean, it wasn't just rumors with Lisa Smith. It was all vitriolic expressions all over the place by other Democrats. And even Mike Ronzullo this time around, when he voted against his party on a couple issues, was given a hard time, as I understand, behind the scenes. You wouldn't see any of that, but I hear a lot about it because I have a lot of connections in the Democratic Party and around town, former members, etc., like that. So we got a real problem here with this Democratic Party. Now, as you see, they're not the largest group. The unaffiliated are groups. So I'm appealing to you unaffiliated voters out there to pay attention here during this election. Understand what they're trying to do with the water and sewer charter change, which I don't agree with, and try to understand what's really happening. I try to present some of that information to you on this program. But they don't tell you what they really think, this Democratic Party. They tell you what they want to tell you. And often is devious, often is not true, politically twisted, all that kind of thing. So you got to be very careful here. Now, slide please. The current minority, that's 2 people on the Board of Selectmen, and they're not running again for office, just like 2 of the Democrats, liberals aren't running. James DeVita, I don't know who's going to be saluting the flag and announcing the football games and things when James isn't there, because that seems to be all he does on the selectmen. And he certainly won't vote against the party on any issue. He's always in favor of whatever the majority in the Democratic Party wants to do, no matter what his own beliefs are. And Mayor Welcome, who really is miscast. She shouldn't be the mayor in the first place. She's been around for 10 or 12 years. Candy Perez has been around for, they say on TV and the paper the other day, the Republicans 6 terms, that's 12 years. They're a bit long in the tooth. We're all tired of seeing them. We're all tired of hearing them. We're all tired of listening to them. And name recognition doesn't mean that much to us because we're interested in results. We're results-oriented people. The fiscal conservatives from any party are results-oriented. They want to see exactly what the issues are and what our plans are to resolve those issues. So in the minority now, we have 2 of those people, and they know that the other 5 are backed into a corner. They've painted themselves into a corner. They've been saying so for months and months and years. But they don't listen. They panic. They think that there's going to be some miracle happen to save them. The current minority doesn't believe in miracles. They believe in planning, responsible management, and they've made some mistakes too along the way, and they admit that. And they're going to step down this time around to let some younger people in the party with a different generation and different ideas and different backgrounds have a chance to try to help solve this problem. Next slide. I want to urge you, unaffiliated voters, all 52% of you, to get out and vote on November 5th. That's one of the biggest problems we have. People find a way not to vote. You know, I've walked around the lake a few times when there was a vote coming, and I walk a week in advance of the vote, and I tell everybody, and I hand out flyers and say, here's when the vote's going to happen. Get down there and vote. I also sometimes suggest how they should vote, from my viewpoint. They don't always agree, of course. They vote their own way. And then I go the day of the vote, I walk around, and people say, oh, are we glad you told us? We forgot about that. Or, oh, today is the vote? They forgot in a week. They've got plenty of other things to do in their life. This isn't their first priority in life, most likely, and they forget. So you better spread the word on affiliated voters and Republican voters and independent party voters and even the Democratic voters. You better spread the word to everybody. Now, if you want to see on the lake, Highland Lake, and I tell you, they're one of the biggest problems we have in this town, the minority of people on the lake, there's only 30 or 40 families there that are extreme environmentalists, and they're already ruining the lake and the town, first the town, then the lake, because they don't vote for any development, don't want any development in town. But if you walk around the lake or ride around the lake and you see a Democrat sign, that's probably one of the 30 or 40 families that I'm talking about here on this program that are extreme environmentalists, and they're killing you as a town, and eventually we'll have worse problems at Highland Lake. We've already got plenty of beaches that are closed, coves that can't be swum in, all that kind of thing. So you got to get out and vote on November 5th, or by absentee ballot if eligible, and I guess you can even sign up on the day of the vote down at the polls to be a voter. Check into all options. Be careful of doing things by mail, because often it takes time. You got to fill out an application that they send you. You got to fill out the ballot. They send it back. Sometimes it gets lost. Sometimes it doesn't get out quick. So you got to follow through. And if you have trouble with the town clerk's office, which you probably won't have much, but if you do, then what you need to do is call the town manager. So next slide and last slide is unaffiliated voters, fiscal conservative Republicans, fiscal conservative Democrats, fiscal conservative in the Independent Party, fiscal conservatives in the Taxpayer Association. Take back your town. Don't let this minority of liberals in the Democratic Party run your town in a sneaky, unprofessional, non-business-like manner. They've painted themselves into a corner now. Don't let them do it again, because you're the ones that will pay. Most of them make good salaries. They have good retirement programs. Some of them are even have tenure and they can't get fired. But the rest of you will take it on the chin if you're not very careful. So please network with all your friends, relatives, neighbors. Get them out to vote. Let's have a big turnout for this election. Let's vote down the charter, and let's not elect any incumbents back into the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Education. There is a chance here, if we can get all the non-incumbents out of the Board of Education and get new people in, that we might be able to gain control of that board. And if we can gain control of that board and the Board of Selectmen, maybe we can start to turn this town around. If we can't, I'll guarantee you it will be business as usual, and we'll have a catastrophe in 6 or 8 months. With that, I say thank you very much.